Hi everyone. So it's Francesca, and I just decided today to do a little update. I haven't been around in a while, and it's mostly because I've been really busy. I'm finishing up my last semester of graduate school. I don't know if you know, but I've been in graduate school to become a speech-language pathologist for the past 2.5 years, and it's really been more of my life than that. I kind of decided to give you an overview of my journey to school or through graduate school, like how I got to this point. And it wasn't easy since school was never something that natural for me. It was always kind of something I wanted to do, but it was really difficult for me to get together at first. So right now, I'm in my last semester. I'm interning at one of our urban public school, actually at a high school, and it's really fun. Prior to that, I was interning at a children's hospital. That was also really great. Learned a lot from both places. So that's why I've been so busy. Over the summer, I was working from like 8 to 6 every day. And then now I'm working earlier. I work from 7 to about 2 or 3, but then I have things I need to get done because I usually have classes after, or I have other things like just personal things I want to do, like work out, make dinner, try to eat. So it's been really challenging. When I started school, I graduated high school in 2003, and when I was in high school, I wasn't a very good student. I failed, actually, almost a whole year of school, so I had to redo that year. So I actually graduated a year late, which was kind of tough when you're 17 and all your friends are graduating and you feel like a failure. But looking back at it, I'm kind of glad I had that extra year to kind of get better at what I needed to do. And the reason that extra year happened there were a lot of reasons in my personal life why that happened, and I don't really want to get into that now because that's like a whole nother video, but I really couldn't study in the environment I was living, so that's kind of an indication of why I had to take an extra year to finish school. So I decided to go to community college, and I went to a community college in my town, and I wasn't good at school still. I got, C average my first semester, and then I decided to keep going. I went another semester, but I didn't do very well, and decided at that point not to keep going, just because I didn't want to pay for something I wasn't doing well with. I got financial aid, but I just didn't want to use up resources, financially that I wasn't going to benefit from. So I stopped school. I worked for about a year, and I just worked in retail and at a coffee shop. It was kind of nice to have a year off, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I actually moved to California for like a brief moment in time, and came back to Connecticut. And when I came back, I re-enrolled in the community college I had already gone to, and finally had a really good professor who really challenged me. The class I hated the most was composition, which if you've gone to college, you pretty much have to take that class no matter where you go. It's a requirement for every college, at least in Connecticut. So I had to take composition, and let me tell you, I took composition 4 times. And the first 3 times, I hated it. The 4th time, it was great. I had a good professor. He was so challenging, but in a good way, not demeaning or not someone who put you down, but like really challenged you to think beyond what you were doing. So I did well in that class. I got like one of my first A's in college in that class. I decided at that point to, what was I doing? I was also working at that point. I was going to night school, and I was working during the day at a special ed school as a paraprofessional. I really liked working with the special education system, special needs kids, and thought I wanted to be a behavior analyst. I looked for schools that had behavior analysis classes. A school in my state had one, or a few classes. I was a psychology major, and I was still working like almost full-time, like 30 hours a week. I was doing much better. And I was at that school for a while. Started working in what's called Birth to 3. And Birth to 3 is a system usually for early intervention for children from 0 to 3 years old. And at least in Connecticut, it helps them with their usually speech, language, development overall for kids who are behind, who have impairments. And I was working with kids who had autism or some kind of social language delay or impairment. At that point, I decided I wanted to be a speech-language pathologist. And that was almost 5 years ago. So you can see that the journey really started quite a long time ago. So I transferred schools, and I transferred to where I go now as an undergraduate student. And I decided to do that because my grades were not good enough to get into a graduate program right away. Most, I think, if not all, graduate programs for speech-language pathology that are accredited, which is what you want an accredited program by the American Speech-Language Hearing Association. You have to have a 3.0 minimum GPA for them to look at your application. And I didn't have that. I actually had a 2.8 cumulative, but it wasn't good enough. And I worked really hard for that 2.8 because my grades from that first year I was telling you about weren't good. So my GPA was actually really much lower than that, and I brought it up a lot. I transferred schools. I took all of the prerequisites for my graduate program, and I was basically a double major. I was a psychology major, and I was also a communication disorders major. And I worked on campus at an assistive technology lab where I got to work with students with disabilities on campus. And again, I loved it. I liked working with that population of students, especially with assistive technology. It's really fun. It's something that can help you, usually something that helps you with learning the things you need to learn that you can't always do on your own, like reading, writing, not math. There's still no program that can really do a lot of math for you besides a calculator. I worked a lot. I worked really hard. I got good grades. I ended up graduating from my undergraduate program with a 3.5 GPA, which was a really big deal for me because I had worked really hard to get there. I mean, I went from almost failing out of high school to having a 3.5, which is a big difference. And I had a 3.7 in my major of psychology, which I'm not saying that to boast. I'm just saying that if you think you're a bad student, you can improve. And so I did that and got into my program. I actually was on the waiting list at first, and that was very upsetting. It's not easy to get into a graduate program, and it's still not easy. I still have, a couple more things I need to do before I'm done, including a paper, which I need to work on after this. But I'm glad I did it, and pretty soon I'll be done, and I can hang some kind of piece of paper on my wall saying the master of something. So if you have any questions about graduate school for speech-language pathology or how to kind of do things to get into school, just send me a message. I'm going to put a link at the bottom for ASHA.org, which is the American Speech-Language Hearing Association's website. So if you want to learn more about speech-language pathology or audiology or communication disorders in general, just look at that link, okay? See you later.